She smiled as she handed you the knife not to kill, but to ensure your hands stayed full while hers remained clean. You thought it was love. You thought sacrifice would save it. You gave her the first piece, the last breath, the better seat, the gentler tone. You hid your hunger so she would feel full, but you forgot one thing. The unconscious does not forgive obedience. She saw you kneel not as devotion, but deficiency. Each time you placed her above yourself, a shadow curled beneath her ribcage, whispering, "This man does not want power, he wants approval." She doesn't hate you because you failed her. She hates you because you erased yourself for her and left her alone with the burden of your emptiness. Now she turns cold and you call it confusion. But you felt it long before you saw it, that shiver when her eyes stopped asking who you were and started asking why you needed her so much. If this whisper already knows, you let it echo. Like the video. Leave your shadow in the comments. Subscribe and stay near the silence. A man who relinquishes his will becomes the child she must mother, and she'll come to resent both. You pulled out the chair for her. You thought it was kindness. You thought it was love. But beneath your gesture, there was no throne waiting, only an invitation to sit higher than you. And she did. Not because she was cruel, not because she wanted to dominate, but because you gave her the power she never asked to hold. You think you are being noble when you suppress your anger, when you bury your edge, when you dissolve your opinions into hers. You think compliance is a virtue, and conflict is abandonment. But she doesn't see a saint when you shrink. She sees a boy too frightened to cast a shadow, and you've made her the mother of your restraint. Every time you defer, you choose the restaurant, whatever you want. I'm okay with anything you think you're preserving peace, but she sees something else. She sees a mirror with no reflection, a man with no heat, a body without gravity, and eventually, she stops turning toward you to feel real. You tried to be everything, but everything is a word that means nothing when spoken from an empty center. You say yes, like a wound says, "I'm fine." You say, "I just want you to be happy," like a broken clock waiting for someone else to move time forward. She hears the fatigue in your mouth, even when you're smiling. In the beginning, she thanked you. You were gentle. You were supportive. You never raised your voice, never made demands, never threatened to walk. You gave her the illusion of control. But the unconscious reads between gestures, and hers began to change. She stopped asking what you wanted, because you never answered with anything real. She stopped touching you with hunger, because your fire was always directed toward her, never yourself. She started making decisions without you, not because she wanted freedom, but because she could not trust you to lead anything beyond your own passivity. You think love means dissolving boundaries, but she didn't come to you to be worshipped. She came to collide, to test the edge of her nature against something unmovable. And when she pressed against you and found only compliance, she stopped pushing. She stopped needing to check if you could hold her, because you couldn't even hold your own contradiction. She may not say it, she may still smile, but her eyes flinch when you offer her everything, because even she knows a man who gives up his will becomes something she must manage, not trust, not crave, not follow. She doesn't want a servant, she wants a witness, someone who can stand beside her, not crawl beneath. But you believed the lie of modern love that nice men win in the end, that the more you erase your ego, the more room she'll have to love you. But love is not built on space, it's built on tension, the friction between your desire and hers. And when yours disappears, so does the mystery. Do you remember when she first lost respect for you? No. You probably called it distance, or stress, or just a phase. But there was a night, unspoken, untraceable, where she looked at you and realized you needed her approval more than you needed your truth. And from that night onward, you stopped being her partner. You became her child, She began correcting you, not because she wanted to, but because someone had to carry the weight of decisions. She began withholding affection not as punishment, but as reflex. A woman cannot desire what she must supervise. You were the chair pulled back too far, the hand that never clenched, the smile that hid the plea for love. And deep down, part of you resented her too. You resented how she no longer listened when you spoke. You resented how she rolled her eyes when you offered advice. You resented how cold she became when all you wanted was to make her warm. But you don't get to rage, because you forfeited that right the moment you gave her the crown and refused to wear your own skin. You created the very thing you now mourn. You built her pedestal, carved it with your silence, and set her upon it with trembling hands. And now, she cannot step down without falling. So she stays there, resenting the air, resenting you, because she sees what you still deny, the unbearable weight of being loved by someone who has no center. You were never too weak. You were too obedient, too afraid of rupture, too desperate to be wanted, too eager to smooth every edge she might bruise herself on. But women do not want men who leave no mark. They want a wall to lean against when their world collapses, not a sponge that absorbs their moods and calls it support. You thought you were protecting her from pain, but you only made her carry yours. You offered safety, but no danger. You offered comfort, but no mystery. You offered adoration, but no challenge. And now you wonder why she looks past you, why she flinches when you reach for her, why her voice sharpens when you ask how her day went. It's because, somewhere in her body, she knows what you won't admit. She feels more alone with you than without you, because at least, alone, she doesn't have to pretend someone else is leading. And yet, you still offer more softness, more patience, more swallowed rage. You think maybe this time she'll see your devotion, maybe this time she'll thank you, but she won't, because she no longer trusts you to want anything but her gratitude. You aren't the man she met. You're the ghost of his sacrifice, and ghosts don't hold hands, they haunt. If you keep pulling the chair back further, soon you'll vanish from the table altogether. She'll sit, she'll eat, she'll smile, and then she'll walk away without looking behind. Not because she never loved you, but because you loved her too much to stay real. Every sacrifice meant to earn love contains the echo of self-abandonment, and women hear it as weakness, not warmth. You thought your gifts were quiet miracles. You wrapped them in attention, in patience, in long nights of listening and not interrupting. You told yourself this was love, but underneath every offering was a scream you wouldn't say aloud. Please need me. Please stay. You didn't give because you were full. You gave because you were afraid she would see your hunger, afraid she would walk away. So you fed her what you thought would keep her compliments soaked in desperation, time carved from your fatigue, dreams whittled down until they resembled hers. You called it generosity. She felt it as debt. She smiled when she received. Of course she did. But over time, she touched your gifts like someone handling a fragile thing. She did not ask for something beautiful, but guilt-ridden, something that bled. You brought her flowers after every silence. She took them. But her hands hesitated, because even the petals seemed to whisper, am I enough now? Will you love me back? You cancelled your plans to be with her. You stopped pursuing what made your chest tighten with fire. You say it was devotion, but she saw the burn marks where your ambition used to be, and she flinched. Not because she hated your presence, but because she could feel the weight of what you abandoned to offer it. She cannot love what feels like a sacrifice. She cannot relax when every gesture trembles with need. She cannot desire a man whose kindness is a bargain written in invisible ink. You didn't mean to manipulate her, but part of you did. The part that believed quietly, unconsciously, that if you gave enough, she would have to stay, would have to want, would have to kneel. But no one stays in a house made entirely of apology. She does not want to be the reason you no longer recognize yourself. She does not want to be the light you orbit. She wants to look beside her and see a man, not a mirror cracked with longing. You didn't see it, but your gifts began to rot. The way you always drove her to work, even when you were sick. The way you memorized her favorite foods but forgot your own. The way you said, "I just want to make things easier for you," with eyes that begged for reciprocation. She didn't hear "I love you." She heard "love me back, or I will collapse." And that made her tired. That made her guilty. That made her flee. Because now your presence demands performance. If she forgets to say thank you, she's cruel. If she says she needs space, she's heartless. If she doesn't want what you give, she's ungrateful. But none of this is her burden. She never asked for a martyr. She wanted a man who wanted her, not one who needed her for his self-worth. You told yourself you weren't keeping score, but resentment bloomed in your chest like mold in an unventilated room. You remembered every moment she didn't reciprocate. You counted the days she didn't notice what you gave up. You catalogued her indifference like a starving priest watching an ungrateful God refuse communion. And yet, you kept giving. Because what else could you do without these sacrifices? You feared you had nothing to offer. No spine, no center, just a menu of nice gestures and soft apologies. But the unconscious always speaks. And hers whispered, "This man doesn't give from strength. He gives to be chosen." You wonder why she stopped meeting your eyes when you handed her gifts. You wonder why she started saying, "You don't have to," more and more. You wonder why she pulled away from the intimacy you tried so hard to earn. It's because your love began to feel like currency, and she didn't want to owe you. She didn't want to be the prize you earned by losing yourself. She didn't want to carry the guilt of your erosion. Do you understand your affection became a transaction, not in her words, not in your mind, but in the invisible language of need, the kind spoken beneath the floorboards of conscious thought? And so she began to pull back, not because you weren't enough, but because you were offering parts of yourself like a man bleeding on the doorstep, whispering, "Please, take this. Just don't leave." You thought this was love, but it wasn't. It was survival. A love that seeks to be kept is already halfway dead, and she could smell the decay. She began to long for distance, not because she stopped loving you, but because being near you felt like drowning in a kindness too desperate to be real. She didn't want your offerings. She wanted your truth, even if it hurt, even if it stung, even if it cracked the silence you were so afraid to break. She would rather fight with a man who knows his own name than be adored by one who forgot it at her feet. But you didn't understand. You doubled down. You gave more. You became sweeter, quieter, more available. You turned every wound into a ribbon and handed it to her with a smile you no longer believed. And she stopped replying. Not because she hated you, because she could no longer feel you. Your gift screamed louder than your voice ever did, and the scream said, "Please let me matter." But she cannot love a ghost trying to earn resurrection. So she left. Or maybe she stayed physically, but vanished in the places that mattered. You try to get her attention now. You try new sacrifices, new tactics. You ask if something's wrong. You offer even more. But it's too late. The gift has already screamed, and she has already heard. When you center her above all, she sees not love, but the absence of a man who can hold his own shape. You thought putting her at the center was proof of devotion, that orbiting her moods, her choices, her dreams would make you worthy of being kept. But all you made was a hollow frame, a man shaped by her, not beside her. And once she stepped away, there was nothing left standing. No sculpture, only scaffolding. No man, only the memory of what you bent to please. You say you love her, but it is not love when you disappear every time she enters the room, when your voice waits behind hers, when your convictions evaporate under the slightest friction. She does not feel honored. She feels surrounded by absence. You mistake this void for peace. She feels it as loneliness. You used to speak with spine. Now your words fold before they leave your lips. You used to walk toward things. Now you hover, waiting to see which direction she wants you to go. You ask what she wants in restaurants, in bed, in life, but not because you care. You ask because you don't know what else to be without her answer. You have become her reflection, a pleasing one, perhaps, but never alive, never dangerous, never real. There is no mystery in a man who has made himself a shrine to her preferences. There is no electricity in the endlessly agreeable. There is no intimacy in worship, only distance dressed as devotion. And she feels it even when you're touching her, especially then, because when she looks at you during those moments of closeness, she sees someone trying to be exactly what she wants. And that makes her responsible for everything, for shaping you, for validating you, for deciding what kind of man you'll be tomorrow. And no woman desires what she must design. She wanted a man to meet her, not mold himself around her, to have a voice that clashed with hers, to stake a claim, to refuse her, even if it meant remaining true, not to punish, but to prove he exists without her. But you made her the god of your identity, and gods do not desire worshippers, they discard them. You told yourself you were being loving when you adjusted everything, when you stopped seeing your friends because she didn't like them, when you abandoned your creative hunger to match her pace, when you swallowed your instincts, your doubts, your jealousy, all in the name of harmony. But harmony without conflict is only silence, and you have gone silent. Even your anger is quiet now. It leaks out sideways, in sighs, in hesitations, in deadened sex and forced smiles. You think you're being kind, you're being erased. She doesn't want your politeness. She wants your edge, not sharp like cruelty, sharp like soul. You don't know how to reappear. You've centered her for so long, you've forgotten the feel of your own gravity. She has become your sun, and you, her obedient planet spinning, devoted, unseen. And now, she turns cold, she becomes distracted. She talks of other men with a sparkle in her eye you haven't seen in years. She pushes your boundaries not to harm you, but to see if they exist. And when they don't, she pulls away again. You blame her for the distance. But what is she retreating from? A frame with no art inside, a house with no foundation, a man who loves her more than he knows himself. You think she's being cruel, but part of her is grieving, too. Grieving the man she once saw, the one who had fire, the one who said no sometimes, the one who had lines she couldn't cross, and passions she couldn't touch. She wanted to meet you, not own you, but you gave yourself away too easily. You assumed love meant proving you'd do anything, endure anything, change into anything, and now you wonder why she looks at you like a stranger. You want her to desire you again, but desire needs tension, distance, the unknown, something she cannot predict, cannot master, cannot fold into herself. You are no longer that. You have become predictable in the most tragic way, always available, always bending, always there. She begins to test you, not maliciously, instinctively. She picks fights over nothing. She ignores you. She flirts with someone else in front of you, not because she wants to break you, but because she wants to feel the edge of your frame. And when it doesn't come, When you back down or laugh it off or say, "I just want peace," her disappointment deepens. She cannot tell you what to do. She cannot beg you to reclaim your shape. That would make her your mother, your therapist, your guide. And no woman wants to kiss a man she has to resurrect. She wants to feel you again, the way your presence once shifted the room. The way your silence used to speak louder than her words. The way your certainty made her question herself, in a way that excited and scared her. But now, your certainty is gone. You wear her desires like a borrowed coat, and it doesn't fit. You wonder what happened. You replay moments. You think maybe you weren't supportive enough. Maybe you missed something. But it's not what you lacked. It's what you gave up. You surrendered your core in exchange for closeness. You traded your shape for softness, and now she sees you, not as a man, but as the echo of what you used to be. Even now, you ask, what do I do to fix it? But that's the wrong question. The question is, who are you when she's not watching? That's what she's dying to feel. Not the man who performs goodness. Not the man who offers gifts with trembling hands. Not the man who says all the right things, too afraid to be wrong. But the man who chooses himself first, not to diminish her, but to remain whole enough to meet her. She doesn't want to be your reason for living. She wants to see you live, even if that means walking away, even if that means she doesn't come with you, even if it hurts. Because only then can she trust that your love comes from freedom, not fear. And maybe you've already lost her. Maybe she's already made peace with your absence, even as you sit beside her on the couch. But if there is any hope at all, it does not come from proving yourself. It comes from reclaiming yourself, from standing still when she tries to shape you, from choosing silence over apologies, from making decisions without checking her face for approval, from loving her without needing her to validate your existence. She will feel it, she will sense the shift, and she may still walk away. But at least now she would be leaving a man, not a mirror. She used to dream of falling into your arms. Now, she dreams of being alone because at least alone doesn't ask her to play God. There is a room inside her she never let you enter. Not because you weren't worthy, but because you were already kneeling. You think the story ends when she leaves. But the real ending is quieter. It's when she stops thinking of you at all. And you, still loving her with every part you gave away, look at your reflection and realize there's no one left to miss